Sup everybody, Ben the Blur here today, bringing you LEGO Transformers Blazetrain. So here we have Blazetrain in his Cybertronian locomotive mode. And yeah, this is very unique. I never expected I would ever make not only a LEGO Transformable train, but a LEGO Transformers Cybertronian train. The main reason I wanted to try and do this was because I wanted to use these pieces here, these wheel pieces, that I got from two different versions of sets from LEGO Dimensions. Some of these wheels came from the LEGO Harry Potter character pack where you get the Hogwarts Express, and the other, two of the others also come from the LEGO Back to the Future pack where you get Doc Brown's flying train. And I just wanted to use these pieces for a vehicle, and the only thing I could come up with was a train itself. And so I basically, did some thinking, did some modelling around, and came up with this. And I think he looks really cool. Obviously, he is a Decepticon, so he's got a lot of black, grey, and light grey scattered throughout him. But I wanted to break up that colour scheme, so I decided to give him lots of gold elements. You've got two gold studs up here, a gold stud on each side, or just under the cab, two gold exhaust pipes right here, and then the gold nozzle right at the front of the train, which obviously has a little bit of fire coming out of here, and up here as well. Obviously, because he is black, it is kind of hard to see a bit of details. I do like how there's this long barrel here for the main engine, that you've got the curved, 2x2 brick there. Underneath, there's not a whole lot to see, which is quite nice. Just looks like lots of pistons and whatnot. From the back, there's not really a lot to see there anyway. And yeah, he is pretty cool. He's got this nice sort of like battering ram at the front. Now, of course, because of these wheels, you can imagine he does ride on tracks, so he can get through certain routes across Cybertron, but he obviously can just drive around like normally, and he rolls pretty well anyway. For a quick size comparison, here he is compared to Flash Drive. So as you can see, the scale isn't quite right. He is obviously a very small train, or he is a very large race car. So you can see how much longer he is. But I really like him. He's very cool and he's very simple. And here he is compared to a minifigure. And obviously this is terribly inaccurate. But yeah. Well, without further ado, I think it's just time to get onto his transformation. Now, Blazetrain's transformation can be a bit fiddly in certain areas, but it's quite simple, but it has a few unique twists and tricks in it. So, first things first, what we're going to do is we're actually going to come to the front of the train here and split these two battering ram pieces. That is going to enable you to bring this whole assembly down, because these two crossbar pieces sort of wrap around this pole to keep it sort of locked together. So you can bring this down here and then extend this whole assembly on these robot claws out, just like that. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to detach this, which is going to become a hammer, and now you can see his robot head under there. We're going to come down here to the legs, and I'll try to get this down on camera as best as I can. So the legs, what we're going to do is, obviously they peg on, they're purely held mainly by this one hollow stud right here. So this can be quite fiddly, but what we're going to do is we're going to rotate these grey pieces around, these grey bricks, so that the cheese slope faces forward and also slightly at an angle. And then we're going to rotate this assembly around so that wheels end up on the backs of his legs. Then we're going to bend this up, slide it along that bar, and rotate this around just so the foot is in the proper placement. These studs like to peg off of these 1x1 bars with the connectors on the side, so you'll have to bear with me on that. Now we'll do the other side. So this rotates around, this rotates around, just like that. And then, let me just sit this down actually, just for now. Then this clip slides along this bar, this rotates around, not completely flush, but just so that the foot at least faces forward. This gives him a bit more, you know, of a dynamic structure to his legs, big chunky legs. Now what we're going to do is going to come to the waist. This clip, which is stuck, oh, that's very tight. There we go. That is going to come up and fold around to his back. And then this 2x2 rounded plate with the stud in the middle is going to connect into the bottom of this 2x2 plate here. Just like that. And so the legs can come down just like that. Now we're going to do the top. This just so this piece just plugs straight into the top of his head, but it is quite a tight, very tight connection, so it can be a bit fiddly, but you can just try to wiggle it out depending on what piece you're using. Let's reattach the head to there, and the head just sits like that in vehicle mode. Let's reattach his leg. Now what we'll do is these pieces come down, and then this whole assembly swings out, and then we're going to wiggle this along this bar, rotate his arm around, bring his forearm up at the elbow, rotate it and bring it down like that, and do the same on the other side. So bring this out, wiggle it along, bring it down, pull his forearm up, rotate it down at the elbow, and bring his forearm down, just like that. And there we have him in his robot mode. Now his robot mode is fairly unique. He goes from obviously being a very sort of unique looking train to being quite a tall yet slender limbed Decepticon. One thing I forgot to do actually here is rotate his head like this, just to give him a bit more of a pointed face. He's got these very small thin forearms. These could be one stud longer. The only problem with that though is that the way his arms fold up means that these clips actually stick way above the cab of the train, and their arms look a bit too much longer compared to his legs. Kind of looks a bit ridiculous. I do quite like how it sort of gives him like this belt, like these two gold studs on the top of the train car. The cab compartment of the train basically sort of become like belt buttons. He's obviously got a lot of black on him, which makes it a bit difficult to see details, but he's pretty unique anyway. You'll obviously see here, this is where, this is that clip that I pushed through earlier that's a bit of a tight connection, but you can raise this up, and you also have a brick. You have a 1x1 brick with a stud on the side here, and I'll show you off that in a minute. He's fairly well articulated, all things considered. His arms do go all the way around 360 degrees. They can move actually sort of in and out on this 1x1 stud with the bar. He's got a bicep swivel, he's got a hinged elbow, and his wrists rotate as well. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any waist articulation, but if you disconnect where that dark grey 2x2 rounded tile is with the stud, you can sort of get his torso looking up, but then it means that he has these two hinges here with these robot arms, which sort of makes his legs really floppy, so want to try and avoid that. But his legs, they can go forward and backwards. He's got a thigh rotation. These are supposed to be his knees, so he's got a knee rotation as well. He's got a rotation in the ankle, and his foot can move up and down as well. He's got some pretty beefy feet, purely just, not only just so that these assemblies at the front of the train sort of hold together when they're wrapped around this pole, but it's so that he can be quite, you know, back heavy as well. Let's get a quick size comparison. So here he is compared to a minifigure. So as you can see, he's a fair bit taller now compared to a Lego minifigure. And here he is compared to what I like to consider the Cybertronian Death Squad. Here he is with Atom Breaker and Astro Pulse. And I think these three look really cool together. You have Atom Breaker, the leader of what I like to consider the Death Squad, you know, left on Cybertron by Megatron, who has the power of radiation and energy. You have Astro Pulse, who is like the team scientist, the tech guy, who has the power of, you know, remote, like satellite controls and, you know, sound waves and, you know, radio frequencies, etc. And then, of course, you have Blazetrain here, who, if you haven't quite figured it out already, has a very unique power. And that is where this comes in. So this is obviously the main engine of the train. Originally I didn't want this to detach from him, but when I was building him, this was the only solution I had, was that it pegs onto him and then you detach the whole main engine of the train. And originally I didn't like it, but then as I created and developed his power, which we have seen once before with Pyro Wing, it did sort of make a bit more sense, and the idea that it detaches from him sort of grew on me a little bit more. So what we can do is you take this gun, well, the engine, and you can actually plug it. There are, on the side of his forearms, there are two jumper plates, so you can attach it to either one. You just attach it right onto his forearm, bring it up at the elbow, and he has what I like to call his piston flamethrower, or piston bazooka. He basically has this giant flamethrower like cannon. You know, the engine sort of heats up and whatever, the smoke comes out of here, and he has this giant flamethrower bazooka cannon, you know, which is pretty damn impressive given that he is a steam engine. He's a steam engine Cybertronian. He's a Cybertronian steam engine, essentially. You also have this, which is, you know, his little hammer, which you can attach to his hand as well. And you don't... I think if I do display him in robot mode, I'm either going to keep these two accessories, you know, just sort of sitting off to the side. But there is one alternative that you can do, which I think is also quite unique, which I've had him displayed up on my shelf for the last few days after I finished completing him. And that is, you come round and we take a look at this 1x1 brick with the stud on the side. So what we can do is let's set him back over here when his legs decide to work properly. There we go. Is this whole assembly can actually attach to this brick just like that. And then this 1x1 clip down here, if we bend this down, you can actually use to attach his sledgehammer, bring that up, and it sort of gives him this giant bazooka back cannon. I imagine that when he attaches it to his back, it's a far more fatal blast. And so, if you bend his body forward and bring his head up on that hinge brick, which is why his head is able to flop up and down in vehicle mode, you bring his forearms up, he basically charges this attack and fires this huge like torpedo or like just massive like missile launcher from his back. And I think that's pretty damn cool. I really quite like him. If I'm honest, I'm probably going to keep him displayed either just like this or in his vehicle mode. But I still quite like him. He's very simple, he's a bit fiddly, he is a bit fragile, specifically here in the hips. But honestly, if I just keep him displayed in one specific mode and I never transform him again, that isn't even going to bother me that much. But yeah. Anyway, I think that's going to be about it, guys. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace out.